From giant fish attacking boats to strange ocean phenomenon and sinking ships, here are 10 of the most shocking incidents at sea. Number 10. Great white shark. If you've been on a boat out on the ocean, a Jaws attack has probably crossed your mind, even if it's just barely. Then of course you rationalize that the chances of that happening are practically zero. Practically. That's what Terry Selwood, a 73-year-old Australian fisherman, learned in 2017, when a great white shark leapt out of the water and into his boat. The 9-foot-long beast hit him on the arm as it landed and knocked him back. Then it started writhing and thrashing about. The quick-thinking fisherman immediately went for his radio to call for help, and when the Marine Rescue Unit arrived, they found a scene of carnage. Selwood was covered in blood with numerous lacerations on his right forearm, according to the official statement, and they also found, quote, a large shark in the cabin of the not-so-large fishing boat. Selwood went on to make a full recovery, but can you imagine a great white shark jumping at you out of nowhere? What was it thinking? Next time Selwood goes out on the water, he should probably use a bigger boat. Number 9. The Battle of Lepanto. Close to 500 years ago, the world was a very different place. The Ottoman Empire was strong, and Italy was broken into several independent city-states that each ruled their territory. It all began after a small Venetian colony was being attacked from Turkish forces. Despite surrendering after being promised peace, the unfortunate citizens were imprisoned and the commanders brutally killed. So, many Italian city-states and even Spain rallied together at the request of the Pope to create a Holy League. This new fleet sailed under a single commander to defeat the Ottoman forces. The stage was set for one of the last major battles to involve rowboats, as huge sailboats would soon dominate the sea. Fleets started to take formation, and soon the call of battle was sounded. Christian slaves that worked in the galley were freed and given weapons, and all were given their last rites. Ships collided and were so close together that hand-to-hand fighting moved from ship to ship as the battle raged on. The freed slaves fought bravely and helped cause much damage to the Ottoman fleet. Eventually, the Turkish flagship was taken, causing a significant hit to the Ottoman morale. In fact, the flag taken from the ship is still on display in Pisa, Italy to this day. Some squadrons were forced to retreat, but many Turkish fighters fought to the very end, even after Christian victory seemed obvious. When running out of weapons, some even resorted to throwing fruit and other such items at their attackers. In the end, the Holy League suffered about 7,500 deaths, while the Ottoman army suffered 30,000 in one of the most shockingly sound victories of the time. The Ottoman naval forces, long undefeated, were now in retreat, and many historians note this as a change in Ottoman history, though they would still find much success until finally dissolving following World War I. Number 8. SS El Faro. Now the year is 2015, and the U.S. cargo ship named El Faro leaves the dock in Florida on its way to Puerto Rico. Hurricane Joaquin, then only a tropical storm, was hundreds of miles off the coast. Predictions were that the storm would grow to become a hurricane, so the chartermaster plotted a course that should have been safe. The plan was even approved by the shipping company, though many of the crew had doubts about their safety with the upcoming storm. They considered her old and out of date, covered in rust and frequently leaking. One crew member even wrote an email to family telling him that they were heading straight towards a hurricane. Still, despite concerns, the ship departed and followed its course. About 10 hours after departure, the ship continued its trajectory and seemed to head directly into the storm, which was now becoming a Category 3 hurricane. This meant wind speeds of close to 115 miles an hour and close to 40-foot ocean swells. Soon after, the United States Coast Guard received a call that the ship had now lost propulsion and was starting to flood. Though it was somewhat contained, without any means to move, the doomed ship was at the mercy of the storm that was approaching it. The Coast Guard then received an emergency beacon signal from the ship, but wasn't able to contact it afterwards. Its last recorded position was right against the eye of the storm, where the ship would be battered and face terrible conditions. The ship log details the feeling on board as the situation went from bad to worse until the captain finally gave the order to abandon ship. Despite rescue efforts, none of the crew were ever found and eventually declared lost at sea. This would lead to widespread attention on safety protocols during intense weather and caused many shipping companies to reevaluate their policies following the nationwide shock. Number 7. a steaming sea. While not unknown in terms of cause, it's still mysterious that this happens at all. Above certain bodies of water, depending on temperature and the weather around it, a sea or an ocean can appear to steam. It's also been called other things like a foggy or smoky sea. What happens is that the winds can bring in cold air, then mix with the warmer temperatures that are just above the bodies of water. This can create steam that doesn't rise very high, making it look like the ocean or the sea itself is boiling. It's very trippy, but thankfully for us all, the water isn't actually boiling. It's just a very cool illusion of sorts. And now for number 6, but first, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell for more videos like these. Number 6, Mary Celeste. The famous tale of Mary Celeste has driven conspiracy theorists abuzz for generations, and it's easy to see why. The story begins in the year 1872, when a Canadian ship found the ghost ship, drifting alone in the Atlantic Ocean. Still completely usable, the ship did not appear to have any problems, and even had a full supply of cargo on board. For some reason, however, there was no crew. No struggle appeared to take place, or anything out of the ordinary. In fact, even all the personal possessions of the crew were normal and undisturbed. The ship's log mentioned leaving New York City 10 days before, but nothing else. It was almost as if the whole crew just vanished. After the ship was recovered, there was a lengthy investigation where theories such as mutiny or piracy were presented. The problem was, none of them fit. Eventually, the ship would be sold to new owners, one of whom deliberately wrecked the Mary Celeste as part of an insurance scheme. Still, none of those on board the fateful ghost ship were ever seen or heard from again. Since there is a lack of standard explanations, many different theories suggest undersea monsters or paranormal activity for the disappearance. Regardless of the theory, for now, the legend of the Mary Celeste remains a shocking mystery that still leaves sailors scratching their heads. Number 5. Andrea Gail. The Andrea Gail is another ship lost at the mercy of nature, a small fishing boat caught in what would be known as the perfect storm. In 1991, while looking for a good catch, the Andrea Gail headed into more dangerous waters in spite of storm warnings. This would be her final voyage. The ship's last known transmission was to another ship, with the captain's final recorded words being, "She's coming on, boys, and she's coming on strong." She would later be reported overdue by her company owner, and an investigation would commence. Analysis of ocean patterns at the time showed that waves would have been as high as 60 feet. In fact, this storm would later go on to become an unnamed hurricane. Later, the story of the Andrea Gail was the inspiration that led to the writing of the book, The Perfect Storm, by Sebastian Junger, which would later be adapted into a movie starring George Clooney. However, despite the Hollywood treatment, the ship's story is one that ends in tragedy. None of the crew members survived. Still, the memory of those involved is honored every August in the town of Gloucester to remember the famous crew that faced the perfect storm. Number 4. Beached whales. You've probably all seen pictures and footage of people trying to help a whale get off the beach and into the water once more. It is a rare and impactful thing to see such a large creature stuck and helpless in the sand. But have you ever asked, how did it get on the beach in the first place? Think about it. These are massive creatures weighing numerous tons and are sometimes longer than a bus, yet they get washed up on the beach. And not just a few inches, but sometimes several yards. How does that happen? How does the water have enough grit or power on a beach to throw a whale? Now, a dead whale might be easier to explain, but most beach whales are alive. So how does this happen? Whales are excellent navigators, but somehow they get stranded in shallow water and on beaches, and sometimes it looks like it was almost on purpose. Marine biologists argue that military sonar experiments are hurting the whale's ability to navigate properly, but scientists still don't know why this happens. There are many reasons to explain why one whale might get beached, but mass strandings are a much bigger problem. Number 3. The Witchcraft. Straight from the infamous Bermuda Triangle comes another case of a ship gone missing. It starts in a sunny Miami dock when a wealthy hotel owner and a local priest decided to go out for a ride on a yacht named Witchcraft. A short time after setting sail, however, the captain reported hitting an unknown object below the ship, and though he was not in danger, he would need a tow back to shore. This would be the last time any sign of either passenger was reported. Within 19 minutes, the Coast Guard arrived to investigate, but the Witchcraft was nowhere to be found. The captain had never radioed in any change of status, and no flares or other indicators were used. No rubble or life jackets or rafts were seen, despite the high level of safety features on the ship. In fact, it was specifically designed to always have part of it floating for emergencies, but no part of it was ever found. In just 19 minutes, the Witchcraft had simply vanished. A widespread search effort was conducted that covered 24,500 square miles and requested the assistance of all nearby private ships, though nothing was ever found. Since there was never any proof it sank and there's no reason for its disappearance, they were never declared lost at sea, only missing. The story and the sudden and complete disappearance of the Witchcraft has added to the already strange legends of the Bermuda Triangle and is a sign to some of something deeper taking place. Regardless of what truly happened, the mystery has remained unsolved to this very day. Number 2. SS Baychimo. The famous Alaskan ghost ship, the Baychimo, is the next on our list. Built in 1914, this steel stem ship was once part of the famous Hudson Bay Company. Sailing in the cold waters of northern Canada, this ship faced Arctic conditions as it moved furs to various shipping ports. One harsh winter, the Baychimo became stuck in pack ice, and the crew abandoned ship, though some remained in a nearby shelter to wait out the blizzard. When the storm cleared, though, there was no sign of the ship. Her captain assumed she had sunk, but a few days later, local fishermen mentioned seeing the Baychimo off the coast, so the crew tracked the ship down and salvaged all the remaining furs on board. Due to her condition, though, it was assumed she wouldn't survive the winter, so she was officially abandoned. Baychimo did survive, however. The ghost ship no longer had any crew, but she would ride the currents and be seen by dozens of people over 38 long years. From dog sledders to Eskimos to explorers, the Baychimo has been boarded by many people and even used as a shelter in harsh storms. Soon after its abandonment, the Hudson Bay Company heard the ship was still out there, but decided she would be too difficult to salvage. So she remained, even until 1969, where the Baychimo was found once again stuck in an ice pack. This was the ship's last recorded sighting, though it is very possible the Alaskan ghost ship is still out there, riding the waves, waiting for the next explorer. Number 1. RMS Titanic. The famous Titanic shocked the world when it struck an iceberg and sank. It was built to be one of the safest ships ever built. The height of luxury, the Titanic left a port at England completely unprepared for the tragedy that would befall her. With less than half the required lifeboats available, confidence in the newly built cruise ship was high. The super wealthy dined and enjoyed high-class accommodations, while the low-class were trapped on the lower levels. She was considered unsinkable, and the lifeboats were merely a courtesy to rescue other ships that might sink nearby. 4 days into the journey, however, the Titanic famously struck an iceberg when the perfect storm of poor crew performance and terrible luck left hundreds stuck on a sinking ship. Water was below freezing, and many passengers knew that they would die. Witnesses report the ship facing tall to the sky and slowly descending into a watery grave, as hundreds were still stuck inside. Out of the close to 1,500 passengers, only around 700 survived. The sinking of the Titanic would shake the world and lead to huge changes in naval safety, from unsinkable to one of the most tragic losses of life at sea ever that could have been avoided if only they were more prepared. Thanks for watching. Did you like the video? Tell us what you think in the comments below, and be sure to like, follow, and subscribe.